All right, thanks for joining us here on the Ourlads Football YouTube Channel. And I believe for the very first time here on Ourlads YouTube Channel, I have special guest Ryan Dunleavy, who covers the New York Giants, the New York Jets, and of course writes for the NFL for the New York Post. He's been covering the teams obviously for several years, and he's been on my channel for several years. Also through the Ourlads Football Network. But Ryan, good to have you here on the YouTube channel for Ourlads for the first time, and thanks for doing this.
No problem. What's up?
All right. Well, what's up is definitely the reason why we have you on.
The Giants are the talk of the NFL for once.
Yeah, right. I didn't even know about this part of the season Hard Knocks show. How long is this? The first time that I've ever done this?
It is.
And what was the reason for it?
Because the Giants have to do Hard Knocks. Every team has to do it unless you're, I forget what it is, made the playoffs last year, have done it in the last 10 years, or are coming off or have a new coach. And the Giants have skirted it for 20 years. They didn't want the training camp version where while they're trying to prepare for the season, the invasive cameras come in and whatnot. So they found a workaround where they could fulfill their Hard Knocks obligation by having their GM and head coach do it. And I think they thought that it would be less intrusive, but honestly, it's far more interesting than the summer version of finding some 80th man on the roster with a tragic story or some fascinating interest, and he gets cut and then he cries. That's a little tired at this point. This is much more interesting.
Yeah, they've stumbled upon something very unique.
As the NFL often does, they stumbled upon into a gold mine.
Yeah, and the Giants, they're the ones that unfortunately were the guinea pigs. Okay,
hey, they wanted it. This was
that's
their
right.
idea.
That's right. Absolutely. So, what have they gone through? 3 or 4 episodes so far?
Last night was the third.
Third. Okay. How many more do they have?
Not sure. I think it goes through the end of the month, so I would guess probably 2. My guess would be 2 or 3.
So a lot of from what I've heard, again, and I'm not paying full attention to this. I'm and the only reason I even know about this is because of following your Twitter account. It's the only reason. And so it seems to me that, and again, you hit it on the head as far as being intrusive, and we're picking up on what the GM has been saying and what other voices, upper echelon, front office Giants, you don't want these things out there, but it's out there. But Barkley's name, of course, and the whole idea about what was really going down regarding his contract situation, that really was the one that tipped me off that, wait a second, this is interesting. What's going on there? What's happening? So fill us in with, first of all, is that the biggest story that has come out of this?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's dominated the first 3 episodes. It's kind of over now. I mean, he signed with the Eagles in the show and obviously in real life, but on time delay, he signed with the Eagles this past episode. So I expect the rest of the show will be dominated by Malik Neighbors and the draft talk. But how they got to where they got with Barkley was definitely the theme of the first 3 episodes. It matched pretty much word for word with all my reporting over the last 2 years. They didn't offer him a contract after July 2023 when he rejected their last offer and played on the franchise tag. They severely underestimated his market. There were people in the building who wanted to keep him, both underneath Joe Schoen and above Joe Schoen. John Mara said he would lose sleep at night if he signed with the Eagles, and certainly that's what happened. He signed with the Eagles. Joe Schoen dug his heels in. His roster building philosophy is that you can get cheap running back production and you should use the resources elsewhere, and that's basically what he did, but put himself on kind of an island there, and Giants, Saquon Barkley gave the Giants a chance to match or at least come close to the Eagles offer, and they didn't want to do it. And now he's going to play for the rival Eagles and probably win more games and have better stats.
So what's your impression of Schoen at this point? Has it changed even though you knew him more than the general public, not that you knew him, intimately well, but you do, obviously, like you said, you've been covering the team, so you know a little bit what's going on. That's what an insider's job is. But did you know anything? Did you find out anything more yourself regarding the man and how he runs the team? And did you have a different opinion one way or another since then?
Regarding Saquon, no, I knew exactly what was going on with Saquon. It's been interesting to see some of their, like, there is stuff I don't know for sure. Like, I didn't know they were as interested in Robert Hunt as they were the guard who signed for $20 million a year with the Panthers to leave the Dolphins. I didn't know they were that interested in him during free agency. They basically had 3 guard targets, Hunt, Runyon, and Illuminor, and they end up with Runyon and Illuminor for combined less APY than Hunt got. So that seems like a smart move. I didn't know that Illuminor was the Giants pro scouts #1 ranked interior offensive lineman. That was revealed on last night's episode. I thought that was fascinating. It was interesting to see the inner workings of how negotiations go. Like, Runyon had the same offer from the Giants and the Jets and was leaning towards the Jets because of the Hackett and Rodgers connection from his time with the Packers. And the Giants kicked it up $1 million a year in his contract, and all of a sudden he was going to the Giants. So it was interesting to see the negotiations work. As far as Joe Schoen, look, Joe Schoen has really good processes. Like, if you are somebody who is a by the book, new school thinker for the NFL, Joe Schoen is your guy. Like, his thinking is often right. Like, people don't want to pay running backs. Joe Schoen doesn't want to pay running backs. People want to rush the passer and protect the passer. That's what Joe Schoen wants to do. He wants to, his trade values seem very accurate with the rest of the league. His processes are good. His results have not been good. I mean, his drafts have not produced many impact players other than the first pick in each class. The Darren Waller trade, that's a good process, right? Trade a 3rd round pick for Darren Waller, who doesn't have much guaranteed money on the contract. That's a smart process. But then they restructured Waller's contract to have dead money, and then he retired after 1 season. So the results have not been good. The processes have been good. That's pretty much what I thought of him, and that's pretty much what we're seeing.
Did you find out whether or not you mentioned how they were able to whether you want to say steal Runyon or convince Runyon to come to the Giants? Were there any players that you found out either through the show or just this offseason that the Giants were close to having, that they thought they were going to have and then didn't?
That's a good question. I mean, no, I mean, the show hasn't really gone much as you would expect. The Giants have final editing power, so they're not going to show you all their mistakes or misses. But Hunt was an interesting one. I didn't know they were that interested in him. It seemed like in the show that the Saquon's replacement was coming down to DeAndre Swift or Devin Singletary, and Brian Daboll, who worked with Singletary in Buffalo, certainly preferred Singletary. Daboll is about as hesitant as anybody ever to offer an opinion on anything, and he had a strong opinion on Singletary. So I thought that was newsworthy that whenever he shares an opinion. Tyrod Taylor. I thought that was interesting, actually, since we're talking Giants and Jets. The Giants seemed very convinced that they were going to be able to retain Tyrod Taylor based on what they showed in Hard Knocks. And I had the complete opposite of it. Like, when I last talked to Tyrod Taylor at the end of the season, I didn't think there was any chance he was coming back to the Giants. He was fed up with how last year went. And yet they offered him a contract before free agency. They seemed pretty sure they were going to get him back. And then he goes and signs with the Jets. So I was surprised they thought that. And then they pivoted to Drew Lock, who, is probably about a comparable player.
I was actually, being a Jet fan, I was doing homework on Taylor and just overlooking. And again, I'm just looking at stats more than from what I've seen and watched a lot of Taylor. So, but the stats looked pretty good for him last year. Were the stats overblown, or did he actually play pretty well last year for the Giants, all things considered?
Tyrod Taylor is what we call an agent of chaos. My fellow Giants reporter at The Athletic, Dan Duggan, coined that term. he is going to make things great happen, downfield shots and big plays and scramble runs. And then he's going to make disaster happen, like when he audibled to a run on the 1 yard line without a timeout and the Giants didn't score and the half ran out against Buffalo. So he plays pretty well. He makes highlights. He has lowlights, and then he gets injured a lot. So, like, he's never going to be able to complete a full season. It's just not the way he plays. He leaves his body in harm's way. But no, I mean, he's a fun player to watch, and he's certainly, I would say he's a top 32 quarterback in this league. So he's certainly one of the best backup quarterbacks when he plays. You just can't count on him to play every game.
The Giants, of course, are starting training camp like every other team real soon. Matter of fact, it's next week. So going into training camp, just for the Giants, of course, any injuries, anything like that? Do you have like a particular storyline that you are already thinking about regarding the beginning of their training camp?
I mean, there's a lot of storylines. The main one, is one of the bigger ones nationally, is Daniel Jones's health coming off a torn ACL at the end of last year. Now, he said recently on a podcast on the Believe Network that he's 100%. He's doing everything. He's running, cutting. He's ready to go. My expectation will be that he is like medically cleared and able to practice when training camp starts. Whether that means he's in 11-11 the first day versus the third or fourth day, I don't know. But I'm expecting no actual limitations, maybe just a kid's gloves on Daniel Jones for training camp. And that's really, like I said, that's the biggest story. I mean, the team has no shot if Daniel Jones is not healthy. So that'll be the biggest one. And as for, you mentioned injuries, I think they put their rookie tight end, Theo Johnson, a 4th-round pick from Penn State, on the PUP list yesterday. There have been reports that it's a hip injury. I'm not sure of that there other people have reported that, but if it's really a hip injury, then you could be talking about days or weeks. So it's really unclear how quickly Theo Johnson will be back, but not a starter, but an impact player. Certainly after Darren Waller's retirement over the offseason, it's Daniel Bellinger atop the depth chart and then not much else at tight end.
Yeah, you don't want to see these young kids get drafted or just the rookies in general get behind like this.
And if I'm talking, I'm looking at your depth chart that you have on the screen right now. The other big story is, can Evan Neal actually play? Like he was the number 7 overall pick 2 years ago. He's been a total disaster his first 2 years, injured, underperforming, picking fights with Giants fans online. Like it has looked too big for him. They're going to give him another shot at right tackle. There was some talk about moving him to guard. They're not going to do that. They're going to give him another shot at right tackle, but he's coming off ankle surgery, didn't practice at all in the spring. So obviously he's a lot of missed time for a guy who needs to get better very quickly. How short a leash the Giants have on him will be very interesting.
What's their backup plan?
It's a good question. It's either Josh Azudu, who was the swing tackle all spring and is probably a better guard than tackle. He failed miserably at left tackle last year. Can he play right tackle? We'll see. He played it in the spring with Neil sideline. Or it's to move Jermaine Illuminor from left guard, which is not his ideal position, to right tackle, which is his ideal position. But if you move him from left guard to right tackle, you wasted his whole spring playing a different position than he's actually going to play. And now you're changing the configuration of the line 2 ways, because you're putting in a new right tackle, Illuminor, and then you have to slide in a new left guard, which probably isn't Evan Neal. It's probably, I don't know, Aaron Stinney or Schlottman or a veteran like that. Maybe Azudu.
Any chance that the Giants are still going to add before the season begins?
I think there's a chance that they add a mid-level type player. Like, I don't think they'll be in whoever the top Justin Simmons market or whoever the top free agent is. But yeah, I think defensive line and cornerback are 2 places that the Giants could go for mid-level veteran help. And when I say, I mean, not, minimum contracts, but not $10 million a year. If there's a player out there who would take a $3.5 million or something like that and could be a, starter or key rotational piece, a third corner or a third defensive tackle, something like that, I think that's a move they could go.
Yeah, there's some the biggest names out there seem to be in the defensive backfield. So I'm not sure if, and again, Simmons being the biggest one, but you would think that there's going to be a few guys, big names, that'll probably have to take just a little bit of money in order to latch on with the team before the season begins, unless the team gets desperate. I'm sure that's why they're waiting. We'll see. How about Adams with the Giants? Any chance we could see that the former Jet land with the Giants?
Jamal Adams?
Yes.
Signed with the Titans.
Oh, he did. I didn't even realize that. When was that?
Monday, I think. I want Monday.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, there goes that. All right. So, it shows you how busy I've been. So excellent.
But no, there was no chance.
No chance anyway.
He is a headache on wheels and not the Giants kind of player. So
okay. What about how you mentioned one of the rookies? Any other stories regarding these rookies coming into camp, as far as whether not injuries, of course, but
Malik Neighbors. I mean, he's hasn't had a padded practice yet, and he is probably their best. Well, not probably, is their best receiver since Odell Beckham in 2018. He's going to make insane catches every practice. The hype train will be rolling. He's the kind of guy who wants the ball early and often once the games start. So it'll be interesting to see if teams are double teaming him, how the Giants force feed him the ball. I mean, he is. You're talking about an offense that was number 30 or number 31 last year ranked in the NFL, and you're taking away Saquon Barkley, Darren Waller, and Sterling Shepard. That's a formula to get worse unless Malik Neighbors sets the world on fire, which we've seen receiver is a place that rookies can do that, right? These high drafted rookies come in, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, who's the other?
There's a lot of them, but By the way, Giant fans,
Jalen Waddle, they could come in and have 1,000 yards right away.
Yeah, Giant fans and in the New York media, I should say, just should realize that Justin Jefferson, as great as a rookie season he had, it did not kick off until almost mid-season. So everybody just moves to a different level.
Beckham with the Giants didn't even play till week 5. He was injured the first 4 weeks of the season. Didn't play till week 5 and still had 1,200 yards and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. So
there you go. Well, then they would know more than most fans. Any of these other rookies? I see here that they have Ourlads. The depth chart has this Kubis kid who was a rookie free agent. I'm not sure if he's truly the number 2 left guard, but
I don't think he is. No.
Any of these other, non-drafted rookies that made a name for themselves?
Non-drafted, so you're not talking about the draft picks. The guy who caught my eye, the 2 guys who caught my eye among the undrafted guys in the spring were Ayer Asante, a wide receiver. Every year you see these guys on the second or third team offense who fill up the stat sheet and catches. Doesn't usually translate to regular season success, but he is a guy I think who's going to have a lot of catches all summer. He'll have a hard time making the roster, I think, but could be a practice squad guy with some potential. And then corner, where the Giants are very, very not deep. The kid from UCLA. I'm looking for him on your desk. Yes, Alex Johnson. Yes, Alex Johnson, I would say, has a chance to maybe steal the 5th or 6th, depending on how many they keep, corner role, because there's not a lot of proven. If he outplays a Trey Hawkins or a Darnay Holmes or Trey Herndon, somebody like that, he could easily move up the depth chart. There's not a lot blocking him if he performs well.
And this Tracy kid, he's going to get a big chance on special teams, correct? Especially with
he's a 5th round pick. Yeah, he's going to get probably the first shot to be the returner and as good a shot as anybody to be the backup running back. We talked about Saquon leaving, and so here's the stat. They have Devin Singletary and then all their other backup running backs. I'm looking for running back on your depth chart here. All the other backup running backs, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy, Jayshon Corbin, and Dante Miller have 13 combined career NFL carries. And 12 of them belong to Eric Gray and 1 to Jay Sean Corbin.
Okay.
So that whole group is as wide open as it could. Whoever you want to tell me is 2 and whoever you want to tell me is 5, I could totally believe it. So yes, Tyrone Tracy will certainly have a chance to be the backup running back.
So basically, unless Gray and Tracy have phenomenal training camps, this is a position the Giants might actually add in free agency.
I don't think so. I think they'll just trust their running guy. I think they're free. I think, like I said, I mean, they let Saquon. They don't really believe running back matters, so they have their. Unless Devin Singletary gets hurt, that's a different thing. But as far as backups, they don't really think. They really think if you block and pass, then pretty much anybody can get yards. So I think they'll go roll with those 4 backups. And, it's a different story if Devin Singletary gets hurt and you need a 20 carry a game guy. But as far as the backups, no, they'll roll with those guys and they'll put their any adding they do, I think would be defensive line and secondary.
Everything going okay with Brian Burns so far? I know we haven't played a game yet, but
really nice guy. Really nice guy. Dominated in the spring, but you're supposed to dominate on defense in the spring. The offensive lineman can't really touch you. So we'll see how he plays when the training camp starts. But obviously super high expectations for him. He was the biggest addition of the offseason for the Giants and seems like the kind of guy who will understand what New York is. So that's a bonus.
And then lastly, Hyatt, being a receiver, especially in the 3rd round last year. I'm sure the fans are hoping that he can break out in year 2. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I talked with him 2 days ago. It stuck with him that he went from 15 touchdowns at his last year in college. I think that was 2nd in the NCAA to 0 as an NFL rookie. And that stuck with him, not scoring a touchdown last year. I think he said it'll stick with him for the rest of his life. So certainly highly motivated. The Giants receiving core is interesting. It should be the best they've had in years. You got Darius Slayton, who's led the Giants in receiving yards 4 of the 5 years since Odell Beckham left. And then so we know what he is. Pencil him in for 750 yards, 50 catches, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. Is as steady a player in the NFL as there is. And then you've got these 3 young kids. The 1st round pick Neighbors this year, the 2nd round pick a couple years ago, Wan'Dale Robinson, and the 3rd round pick last year, Jalen Hyatt. And they're all kind of complementary pieces. Hyatt's a big speed downfield guy. Wan'Dale's a small over the middle shifty guy. And Neighbors is a high volume 100 catch guy. So it's an interesting receiver core. It's young. And the question is whether it's going to be durable and whether they are going to have enough time on the offensive line for those guys to get open.
And I just want to, of course, I wanted to make sure that everybody sees that this is part of the work that you do, of course. These are the archives over at the New York Post. So this was your last article here. Is this one that you put together?
It is. I wrote, like you said, I do Giants and Jets. So I had some fun today, Greg. I wrote a Jets training camp preview on what we would be saying right now on the Jets if Aaron Rodgers never got hurt. And to tease it a little bit, it's about the Jets trying to get back to a 2nd straight AFC championship game to make up for their loss to the Chiefs last year, loading up on Devontae Adams and the contract extensions for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, who are definitely the right people for their job, and Nathaniel Hackett salvaging his reputation last year and having too many mouths to feed on this loaded offense. And the big question being, can Aaron Rodgers still win the big game after losing what is now 5 straight appearances in AFC or NFC championship games? That's what the Jets would be if Aaron Rodgers played more than 4 snaps last year.
Jet fans, I'm sure, would be looking forward to reading that article, especially knowing that it's probably pretty accurate for what it sounds like. But you know what? Maybe this is exactly what's going to happen. This would be something to save and talk about next offseason, because maybe this is exactly what's going to happen this season. Maybe. So got to keep it healthy. That's the most important thing.
I think the Jets are loaded. If the Jets aren't deep in the playoffs, it's a disappointment.
That's what I've been telling everybody. I'm like, I have no doubt in the world that the Jets are going to have their best season in years, as long as Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. So, but and the same thing again for the Giants. We have no idea how.
Oh no, not the same thing for the Giants.
I was going to preface that by saying, but not as far as the Jets. But
I think the Giants are a bottom 5 team in the NFL.
So even with a healthy Daniel Jones,
so
it's going to be pretty bad no matter what. Okay,
but I say that most years because and I'm right most years, but I wasn't right in 2022, and I definitely thought they had a bad team then, and they won nine games plus a playoff game. So
you never know.
Yep.
Because it's also about what happens to the other teams as you're competing against that.
How healthy you stay. How many close games you win versus how many close games you lose, how Daniel Jones performs, how Neighbors performs, how the defense adjusts to a new scheme. I mean, the Giants' 2 most winnable games are their first 2 games, so there's no room for a slow start.
Ryan, thanks for doing this. I look forward to talking to you at least once or twice before the season begins on the Giants and the Jets. And we'll be looking out for your articles at the New York Post as well. So, we'll be looking forward to our next conversation, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
You got it.